fabulous. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen. I am in Warminster, but I'm not. I sort of intermittently pop into Sustainable Warminster, but I'm not in any official capacity. Hence, not waving when you said, "Is anybody from Warminster on the call?" I run an organisation. When I say I run an organisation, that sounds very grand. It's just me. I run called Sustainable-ish, which is all about sort of imperfect eco action and I used to be a vet, and my journey into sustainability started when we spent a year buying nothing new in 2012, and I sort of blogged about it and things. So I've sort of unintentionally really transitioned into a career in sustainability sort of over the last, well, I've been sort of working full time in it for sort of the last 10 years or so. Carbon literacy training, I first came across it during one of the lockdowns, maybe the first lockdown, I think, and I did a carbon literacy course with an organisation called Speak Carbon. So carbon literacy training, I might be teaching you all to suck eggs, but if I just go right back to basics, the Carbon Literacy Project is a charity that started about 10 years ago. They're based in Manchester. They don't deliver any carbon literacy training themselves. They don't sort of produce any courses or anything like that. But what they do is they accredit all of the courses and they accredit all of the learners, and they do an awful lot of kind of outreach and things about carbon literacy training. And the sort of, I guess, official, I can't remember the official definition of carbon literacy, but the unofficial one that I prefer is this idea that, or the analogy, I guess, that carbon literacy, if we use the analogy of financial literacy, so the whole idea of it is that if we get, you know, in the same way that we all very quickly develop an understanding, a very basic financial literacy that, you know, £100 note is we don't even have £100 note, so £50 note is a high value note and a £5 note is a low value note. And whether something is cheap or expensive, if we all, you know, the idea is that we would all develop quite quickly, hopefully, this sort of basic carbon literacy, so that we have an understanding, a basic understanding of whether something is a high impact action or a low impact action, both in terms of, you know, the everyday things that we're doing as individuals, as households, as communities, as businesses, and also when we're thinking about the actions that we can take, understanding whether the thing that we're doing is high impact or low impact, you know, helps us all to focus our limited time, headspace, energy, all those sorts of things on those higher impact things. So I quite sort of like that analogy of it. There's over 600 different carbon literacy courses now being delivered to, I was just having a look, they update the infographic on the website every month. I think over 83,000 people worldwide sort of certified as carbon literate. And the reason there's so many different courses is that they are very keen on the idea that each course is as relevant and specific as possible to that business, that geographic location, that specific sector. So after doing my course with Speak Carbon, I was very keen to develop a course for my sustainable-ish audience, for, you know, air quotes, ordinary people. So I developed a course and started delivering that in March 22, and then was sort of very excited about the possibility for using that within the veterinary profession as well. So worked with a social enterprise called Vet Sustain that I'm a director of, to develop a carbon literacy course for the veterinary profession, and have been delivering that since March 2023. And there are courses, you know, the NHS, there's a toolkit available for the NHS. It's being delivered very widely within the NHS. There are courses for local authorities, for town and parish councils, for museums, for sports organisations, for, just trying to think, I developed a course for Bloomsbury, for the publishing agents, publishing organisation. So loads of different courses out there. They have to be 8 hours worth of training. So some people and people sort of vary their courses. Some people do some sort of self-directed learning and then bring people together for some group learning. I choose not to do that, because I personally know that if I have self-directed learning to do, it doesn't happen. So I try and, you know, all of mine is either sort of delivered either online or in person for sort of 8 hours worth, and I sort of split mine up so that it can be either for 2-hour chunks or 2 4-hour chunks, or in person a day works really, really nicely. And they all of the courses cover the same basic, I guess, sort of curriculum, if you like. So they'll all talk about what is climate change, what are greenhouse gases, what are the main greenhouse gases, where are they coming from, look at climate justice, this idea that the countries that have historically and are currently emitting the most are not the ones that are experiencing the worst impacts. Look, and also how climate justice works, within a country, or even, we could look at like, how does climate justice work within Wiltshire? We know that people in poorer socioeconomic groups will suffer more consequences, all those sorts of things. Look at what else? Carbon footprints from an individual perspective. I usually do a brief foray into kind of business footprints, just so that people have an understanding, when businesses are making claims of net zero or carbon neutral or those sorts of things, so that people understand that and how it's measured. I delivered some training, sort of more community sort of focus training in Frome and in Northamptonshire, bizarrely, and we looked at the carbon footprint, of the county, or and you can, there's a great tool, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a great tool that you can look at, and you can put in a postcode and you can find out the sort of average carbon footprint of people living in that particular town or village. That's quite a useful tool. We look at, I do a section on the importance of talking about climate change, because one of the things I really want from my courses is for people to have the confidence to go out and be able to talk about their concerns about climate change and what they're worried about, and the things that they're doing, and the sort of some of the joy and the connectivity and the positive benefits that have come from taking climate action and things like that. There's sections on sort of the impacts. We look and again sort of start globally, then look nationally, and then could look very specifically at sort of what's happening in Wiltshire. Then there's a bit, or I do a bit on sort of different future scenarios that lie ahead of us, depending on how quickly or otherwise we take action. And then what I hope is quite a nice positive exercise, where we look at this, a scenario whereby we've done what the science tells us we need to do, and we've halved emissions. It's 2030. We've managed to halve emissions in line with the science. And what are there's these little postcards, I call them postcards from the future. There was one on food, one on transport, one on energy, one on buildings. And then, use that as a platform for encouraging people to think about, well, what does your household look like? What does your life look like in 2030 when this has happened? And what could your town, your community, your, what could that look like, as a way of encouraging people to really think and imagine like how good this could be? Because the narrative very much is, this is going to be really bad, like it's either this apocalyptic doom and gloom, or it's the greenies are coming for your burgers and your flights, and you've got to find space for 7 bins, and it's all just going to be really grey and austere and miserable. Well, actually, this could be amazing, and this could be, we could have more we could have more community, more connection, more joy, more, better physical health, better mental health. But we're not doing a very good job as a sort of sector, I guess, in the storytelling and the communication that comes with that. So allowing people to imagine and get excited about that. And then the last section is all about action, and really getting people to think about, well, that's great, but like, now what? Like, I'm a big fan of nothing changes if nothing changes. So I think one of the great things about carbon literacy training is you get taken on this emotional roller coaster, and there are parts that sort of induce a bit of anxiety, but at the end it's very much like, where's my influence? What can I do? So at the end, in order to get a certification, people have to come up with 2 pledges. So an individual pledge and a group pledge, and the pledges are very much, they want them to be in the context in which the training's been delivered. So when I deliver my training for ordinary people, they can do whatever they want. They could do an individual pledge that was something home-based or work-based or community-based or whatever, and the same with their group pledge. However, when I deliver, when I do the veterinary course and we're talking to people about their own roles, we're really wanting them to think about what their individual role is and what an individual change they could make in their workplace. And again, if we were delivering this in communities, we would really be asking people to think about, well, what's my role, I guess, within my community, my specific community group, or within my community, where can I have some influence that I don't need permission from anybody else to do? That's your individual pledge. And then your group pledge is thinking about how you can bring more people on board, how you can engage more people and come together to sort of amplify that action. So that was 10 minutes of me verbally vomiting at you the sort of a brief outline, if you like, of carbon literacy training. Go for it, Christian.
Jen, thank you so much. That's really interesting. And I love the work that you're doing. Superb. Wiltshire Council is in the process of doing carbon literacy for all their people. They can't, they don't have the capacity, they say, to roll it out for the rest of Wiltshire, being parish and town councils, businesses, community groups, and everything. So we're considering taking that task on and applying for funding to do that. So that's one thing that we're thinking about doing. What would you say were the main considerations that we have to take into consideration, if I can put it that way, when looking at a monster project or trying to train a large proportion of Wiltshire? What would you say? What's our main considerations?
So the only qualification you need to deliver carbon literacy training is to be carbon literate. So I guess the first step would be to, deliver to a cohort who are excited about it and who feel like they would potentially feel able to go out and deliver that. Once those people are carbon literate, there are toolkits available. So like my course is, a course that I've developed and had accredited and all that sort of thing. The Carbon Literacy Project have various different toolkits which you can sort of access off the shelf. I think there is now a fee associated with using them, but there is a toolkit for town and parish councils. So you wouldn't have to develop a whole course, yourself in order to be able to deliver that. You just need to, a few people who are happy to deliver it. There either is a community course or there is one coming. I would need to double check that. So again, you wouldn't necessarily have to sort of create your own course to be able to do that, because that's often the big stumbling block, is putting together 8 hours worth of training. So but as I said, there is, I think, a cost involved with those. So and I off the top of my head, you'd need to speak to the Carbon Literacy Project to find out what those were. And then the idea is really, they talk about within sort of big organizations, like I was chatting to somebody earlier who's in conversation with like BT about, rolling out training for 40,000 employees. The idea is that within organizations that you can, they talk about cascading out the training so that you have, maybe one external person who comes and delivers it to a cohort of people. They do the training, they then go and deliver it, and, so that it kind of cascades out like that. So it's, I guess, about finding people who are confident to deliver it. And, I certainly think maybe getting people who would be happy to do something in pairs, or, so you could have a more experienced person so that you can sort of train people up in that sort of context. I think getting people who are really comfortable engaging with people and facilitating that sort of thing, because I've been on some carbon literacy courses that have been dull as ditch water, and 8 hours of dull sustainability training is really dull. Do you know? So, and that switches people off. So I think the important thing is ensuring that you've got a really, good batch of kind of first facilitators who can then sort of confidently cascade that out.
My initial thought, it would be a paid group of people who would be paid to do it. So professional people to do it.
It might be worth getting in touch with, I don't know if you come across Save Our Shropshire.
No.
I think it's Save Our Shropshire. I'll find the link and I'll pop it into the chat. But they've done a lot on a sort of, I think they might, if there is, in my head, there is a community course and they helped to develop it. So we'll need to double check that. I haven't dreamt that. But they're, to my understanding, they're a similar group to sort of WCA, and that they've been able to sort of develop the training, roll it out. I think they also do some training. It depends whether you want to make this a training that people have to pay for to come and attend, or whether you want it to be sort of free at the point of delivery, all those sorts of things. But they definitely be worth getting in touch with to get the benefit of their experience, I think.
Yeah, Jen, that'd be really helpful if you could send that through. My initial thoughts would be it'd be paid professionals delivering the training as a result of us getting a grant, and so on. And ideally, I think it's really important to follow that up with support, and then so ideally we'd have a team of supporters who could help people to get certain projects or those promises or whatever off the ground. Do you know, so anybody who's done it before would be really useful, and then we'd have meetings with them and just to try and learn the lessons before we even start putting even a bid in.
I mean, I think what you said about providing that support afterwards, I think would be really, really helpful. I'm very aware that people come to me and I deliver 8 hours of training, of quite emotionally intense training, and they submit their pledges and that's all great, and then off they go. And I do have a Facebook group that people can come and use, but it's very, very quiet, and some mechanism for bringing people together to be able to keep the momentum going, I think would be really helpful. And to if there are people who are wanting to do a particular type of project in their community, to be able to hook them up with somebody else in another community in Wiltshire doing it, I think that would be really, really really helpful, and help mean that good intentions do actually turn into actions.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much, Jen. I don't know, Bill. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, go on, Bill.
Yeah.
Hi, Jen. Brilliant description you've given us so far. I think it's around the things you've just been saying, and Christian has been saying too, because I guess I see this great thing of training people, but I've been trained, I've given training, and the problem is, unless you practice what you have learned in that training, it all disappears in the end and becomes. And I just wonder how you feel about leading that group of, because you're doing quite a lot of people, so you can't expect, I don't know how many people you're training in a year, but you'll be training an awful lot of people. There's no way of dipping back in. I think one of the things we need to think very carefully about is as Chris was saying, how we can get it back in, how we can actually help them along their journey more once they've swallowed all the information and thought about it. Maybe have a follow-up meeting, maybe do something else. I don't know, but it's really, really important for us to actually carry it forward and see a change, because Wiltshire Climate Alliance was formed to help people deal with climate change. And this is ideal. What you're describing is absolutely what we need to be doing. But just talking about it, as we well know, doesn't do anything. You've got to get on and actually do something.
I mean, I think that the fact that people have to think about actions, they have to sort of quantify whether they're going to be low, medium or high. They have to say exactly what they're going to do, what a greenhouse, like the fact that you have to do that and sit and write it down and get it submitted and things. I think there's all sorts of research, isn't there, about the goal setting and writing things down. I think people are, because you have to actually think of action, come up with it. That's a step. But I completely agree with you, having some support, and whether that's so there's a brilliant woman called Kate, and her surname's gone out, but she's based in Japan, I think, and she runs a lot of online carbon literacy training, and so she has like I don't know if it's every other month, but like a sort of it's not a climate cafe because they're a specific thing, aren't they, about eco-anxiety, but a sort of carbon literacy cafe drop-in, so that people can come if they want additional support, if there's something they're struggling with, if they want another boost of motivation, all those sorts of things. So it could be something as kind of relatively informal as that, because some people do just want to come and do it, and then are quite happy getting on and sort of actioning their thing and making it happen. Other people will really appreciate the support. And I think one of the things I found is that when you do the training, whether it's online and even more so in person, you bring a group of people together, and it forms, for those 8 hours, this lovely community. So then being able to have some mechanism whereby that community feel, you know, that group is able to feed into a bigger group, and that community feel grows. Because one of the things that we're all probably very aware of is that lots of people wanting to do stuff in their business or in their organization feel very lonely often, because it can feel like they're the only person. So providing some mechanism for people to feel supported, I think is really, really important. But I'm not aware of anyone providing something much more formal afterwards.
Okay. Oh, it's the other side of it I'm thinking of is, you know, from a personal perspective, I get trained, and then I want to take it into my village.
Mm-hmm.
So I then create a carbon literacy or a climate literacy group in the village that then takes that out more into the village and into the school and whatever, so that the village starts working around the whole thing.
Yeah. So you've got that group who have that, you know, baseline level of understanding, and then, you know, you then as a group could put together like an hour's you know, condensed session that could be delivered to the WI within your village, or delivered to the scouts within your village, or whatever, and so that you're sort of spreading that knowledge and thinking about how you can and you know, the training itself is almost an excuse or a mechanism to bring the interested people in the village together.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly that. Because you're surprised when you start asking those sort of questions in the village, how many people actually do pop up and say, yeah, I'm interested in that, but nobody's
but don't feel like they know enough to talk about it. Don't feel like they know enough to really know what the big things are they should be doing and what they should be focusing on. And there's all this contradictory information. So by bringing them together and just saying, you know, here it is, here's what you need to know, the one of the biggest outcomes really, I think, is that confidence to be able to talk about it and to be able to sort of make more informed decisions, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
No worries. Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. That's really interesting. I'm just a quick question, hopefully, is around how you engage. You sort of alluded to that just now, but about engaging with groups. I mean, how do you reach out to these groups, particularly from the community, whatever? Do you have a poster up and say, turn up, or
no, I mean, majority of mine is online. And so, you know, I've got quite a big online community, and I just use my social media platforms in order to get people to come. You know, and mine, I charge for them. The North Somerset Council I did some training for them for their community groups. When was it? Maybe end of 2022. And they sort of had a list of community groups that they thought would be vaguely interested, and they sort of went out to them. And the difficulty often, you know, when it was just a one-off, is trying to get all the right people in the right room at the same time. We did a day's training. You know, and I guess sometimes the thing is, when you offer a training for free, like, people don't really appreciate it. So, you know, thinking about, so the certification costs £10 per head. So it might be that you decide as an organization that you want to charge people that £10 a head, because it kind of makes them respect the course a little bit, makes them more likely to turn up, makes them more likely to submit their form at the end of it, all those sorts of things. Or you might want to do it as a, you know, if you really want to offer it for free, that it's a refundable deposit or whatever, but, you know, some way of ensuring that people do actually come along and value the course, if that makes sense. But yeah, in terms of reaching out to communities, that, you know, Wiltshire Council may have, I don't know, they may have a master list of groups and things, but it probably would be just you know, relying on local contacts to be, and sometimes the thing that often works the best is literally going up to people and go, you know, literally face to face. So as somebody in my community who was doing a tree planting weekend, and she was really worried nobody in her village would turn up. So she literally was on her dog walk and going, are you going to come? Are you going to come? Can you come? And then people, and like 30 or 40 people turned up. Whereas if you just put out a generic, will people come and help on Facebook, everyone thinks you're talking to somebody else, or, oh, it's okay because someone else will turn up. But if you actually go on that, you know, it's slow and painful, but sometimes that can be the most effective way of getting people you know, on board and coming to something like that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, for instance, parish councils, you know, you could sit in a, you know, village hall, and, you know, one man and his dog turns up or something like that. But so it is trying to reach out.
Parish councils, I did have a chat with Wiltshire Council last year about you know, delivering this for town and parish councils, and we were talking about, you know, a day somewhere relatively central and inviting the town clerks from each of the town and parish councils, you know, and any interested councillors who wanted to come, you know, and they were like, well, probably Bradford-on-Avon will come, and they reeled off another couple of, you know, people that will come. And I think if you can get a few to start with, then the others are like, oh, hold on a minute. And that bit of, you know, competition between the towns and things kicks in. So it might be that if you can get a few to do it and then be sort of raving about it and talking about it, especially if they then come up with some exciting scheme where they've saved money, that sort of thing, that can often be helpful for town and parish councils, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Andrew, I think you had, oh, sorry, Tony, go on.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
Andrew, I think you were next, and then Jackie.
Well, I slipped behind Jackie. Jackie?
Oh, okay, go for it, Jackie.
Hello. I just wanted to say that it's Jen's
Hiya.
fault that I'm here at all. I went on her training last May, and it completely changed my life, because not only did it get me, I appreciate that all of you know far more about climate change already than I did then, but it was not just the facts and figures for me. It was the learning how to have those conversations with people who aren't interested in talking about it, and how to, and also lots of resources as to learn how to have those conversations, and also how to cope with the anxiety and the stress and the frustration of the world we currently live in. There's, you know, that nobody's listening. We're all worried sick, but it's like, and I did go on a very interesting webinar yesterday where they pointed out that change happens not only when you appreciate the need for change, but when you understand that the other people in your community also appreciate the need for change. And to me, it was a bit of a wake-up call, because it was like when we were under COVID conditions, when did we wear a mask or not? You know, we should be wearing a mask early on, but it was really difficult to do so if you were the only person in the shop who was wearing a mask. Once you could look around and see two other people wearing a mask, it was like, well, why aren't the rest? And I feel like if there's enough people in our community happy to talk in an educated way, and our community, I mean Market Lavington, Devizes High Street, you know, happy to talk about it, then it'll be, and, you know, posters up in waiting rooms and things, then it'll be a lot easier for people to accept the current situation and move from being either ignoring it or being frightened to talk about it to actually taking action as a community.
And Jackie's like, you know, you were saying, like, how do we make sure that people go on and do stuff afterwards? Well, we can't really. We can support them and facilitate them to do it. And there's a percentage of people who will do the course and feel inspired for 2 days, and then life takes over again. And then at the other end of the extreme, there will be people like Jackie who have gone, bloody hell, like, and then found their own tribe or created their own tribe, or, you know, made change happen in their workplace, all those sorts of things. So there will be a you know, a spectrum of people, and we can't expect everybody to be as amazing as Jackie after doing their training. But you know, if you can get, you know, one Jackie out of every 10 people, you'd be absolutely nailing it. Go on, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Jen. You've given us a load of information. It's been brilliant. And I'm aware that you may have another meeting to go to. So I just wanted to ask you one thing. I'm glad you let on that the training can be fairly emotionally intense. Perhaps it's transformational for some people. And I just wondered if you could switch into something very subjective. If you can remember any treasured moments when people somehow expressed what a difference it had made to them, or anything like that, what it had inspired them to do, or what they'd realized that they hadn't before. Yeah.
I mean, I've literally, one that really stands out, like, you know, a woman like literally in tears because she just realized, you know, I think we've been talking about flying and the disproportionate impact of that and that sort of thing, and you know, she was really brave because she was like really acknowledging that kind of, but that's my holiday and I work really, really hard for my holiday, and why shouldn't I have my holiday when, you know, the usual Prince Harry, Taylor Swift, all those sorts of things are, you know, Rishi Sunak's flying here, there and everywhere. but now I feel really uncomfortable in that. So she was really brave at sort of articulating that discomfort that probably a lot of people were feeling. I think it's just some of it, like there is real gaps in people's knowledge. You know, the sort of varieties under the like greenhouse gas, and often, you know, why would you know, we never get taught that sort of thing at school. And then, you know, asking people to rank I don't know, carbon footprint of different foods or the energy saving from various activities and that sort of thing. And it always just sparks lots of conversation and discussion. And the climate impact thing, I think, is really uncomfortable. The climate justice thing is really uncomfortable, but sparks a lot of discussion and thought processes and all those sorts of things. And then you know, people like somebody, I just had the last couple of ones that have just come in, like people, you know, somebody who family live in Ireland, I think, and she's in the UK, normally does 4 return flights to Ireland a year, and she was like, well, I'm just going to do 1 this year. Like, you know, that's that on the, you know, you sort of think, oh, well, you know, should she even be flying? Well, she needs to go see her family and all those. But, you know, there are things that people recognize in their own lives and sort of changes that they go on to make. But where people then also kind of step into their, I talk a lot about spheres of influence and a lot about, you know, this idea of like the climate shadow, the idea that there's your footprint and your carbon footprint, but then your shadow is all these conversations you have and all these things that you're seen to be doing and stuff, and people really recognizing that influence and sort of stepping into that, and then going on. And so doing the course with the developing the course with Bloomsbury, that's because their sustainability lead came on my course, and then she was like, right, I want to roll this out in my organization. And so all these kind of ripples that happen, and some of them are really small and I never hear about, and some of them are much bigger and sort of, you know, lead to lots more people being trained and lots more actions being taken. But that was very waffly because I can't remember any specific ones that stand out off the top of my head. But
No,
I mean, Jackie would be an amazing example, really.
that's really spot on. Thank you. That's fabulous. Folks, Jen told us beforehand that she has to go into another meeting at 8.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, I've got an 8 o'clock.
We've given you 5 minutes for your comfort break and
Don't worry.
your stretching exercises. But I'm sure this won't be.
I'll find that link to Shropshire and pop that in the chat before I go. And then if, you know, if any other questions do come up, then you know, Jackie, please do feel free to pass my email on, and I'm, you know, very happy to have a go at answering them.
Thank you very much indeed, Jen. Thanks.
All right, cheers guys, lovely to meet you all.
Thank you.